Okay, it is time to find out how you did on yesterday's assignment. So today all you're going to need in front of you is that experimenting with larger arrays sheet that you did yesterday and a pencil or pen or something to check it as we go through this assignment. You don't have any other assignment today for math except for to watch this video and follow along. That's all you have to do today. So let's take a look at the work you did yesterday. I mentioned that when we solve larger arrays, what we really do with these problems is break them apart into smaller sections and then add those sections together. The whole answer, final answer that we get for a multiplication problem is called the product. So the little parts are called partial products. And when we solve these, we're adding together partial products to get a final product. So I got you started yesterday by telling you that there'd be 10 in each row times 3 rows. Here is a section of 10 times 3 is 30. That second section is also 10 times 3 is 30. And then this last little section always ends up being a different amount than the rest of it because it's the ones place we're multiplying here. So I have only 3 in each row times 3 rows gives me 9 total. To find my final product, I'll add up my partial products. So it would be 30 plus 9. And that gives me a grand total of 69 for problem number 1. Give yourself a check mark if you got it right. Our second problem is 32 times 6. And again, 32 times 6 means there's 32 in each row. 10, 20, 31, 32 in each row times 6. So we'll break that apart into smaller sections. The first group here is 10 in each row times 6 rows gives me 60. The second section is the same thing, 10 times 6 is 60. We have a third section here, 10 times 6 is 60. And then that last little section there again is going to be the ones place, and so it ends up being a different problem than the rest of them. This is going to be 2 going across times 6 going down gives me a total of 12. And then I take all of those and add them up. Of course, in my ones place, I'm going to end up with a 2. And then I've got 6 plus 6 plus 6. That's the same thing as 6 times 3, 6 times 3, and then add 1 more to it. So that's 18 plus 1 more is 19, and my grand total answer is 192. Give yourself a check mark or a star if you've got it right. Now, as I'm going through this, you realize that you've made some mistakes and you haven't solved them the same way as me. That's okay. I don't need you to go back and fix it. You do not have to recolor or do this whole assignment. Remember, all you have to do today is just watch the video. So if you realize that you've done these incorrectly, just set your paper aside. You don't have to fix it. The most important thing is that I want you to be able to follow the steps and understand how we're getting these big answers to these problems. Our next problem is 44 times 5. So again, there are 44 in each row, and we have 5 of those rows of 44. So 10, 20, 30, 40 in the tens place, and then 4 more in the ones, times 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 going down. So we're going to break it apart into our sections. There's a lot of sections here. This first one has 10 in each row, times 5 is 50, and then another group of 50, another group of 50, another group of 50. So notice we ended up with 1, 2, 3, 4 of those groups, and that's because there's a 4 in the tens place. And then our last section in the ones place here is going to be 4 in each row times 5 is 20 total. Now I get to add all of those up, and 50s aren't too hard to add up. This is 50 plus 50 is 100 plus another 100, or plus another 50 plus another 50. That gives me a total of 200. So 5 times 40, this section right here ends up being 200, and then I've got one more group over here. 4 times 5 is 20. When I add all that up, there's a 0 in the ones place, and 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 5 plus 2 is 22. So we end up with 220. Give yourself a star or a check if you got it right, but don't worry about fixing it if you didn't. All right, this one, yuck. This was quite a problem to solve. Let's see how you did with it. So we've got 87 of them going across in that row, and then 6 going down. 87 in each row times 6 rows. Let's see how many little squares we have. So breaking these apart by sections, I have 10 in each row times 6. That's a group of 60. 10 times 6 is 60, 10 times 6 is 60, and you get the point. I'm going to keep going, but I'm going to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 groups, and each one of those groups has 60 in it. So that's a pretty big chunk right there. And then of course the last little section is the ones place. So I'm multiplying the ones place of 7 from 87 times 6. So 7 in each row times 6. 7 times 6 is one of those basic facts. If you remember it, it is 42 is the total there. So now we're going to add this nightmare up. And to make it a little easier, before I add in this little ones place section, I'm going to go ahead and work on trying to just figure out the total of this tens place section, this part of 80 times 6, and figure that one out. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of these 60s that I've got to add up. Now, the ones place is really easy. It's just a 0. The tens place is kind of nasty, but if you think about it, if we're adding 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 of those 6s together, that's the same thing as 8 times 6. And 8 times 6 is one of those basic facts. I know a lot of us are rusty on it, but 8 times 6 is 48. And so that means that my tens place answer here is 48. So the grand total of all of this section right here is 480. And notice that was 80 times 6. So it really is the same thing as 8 times 6, except it was 80. So there's a 0 at the end, and instead of it being 48, it was 480. Whew! Now we've got this little one section that we have to add in here. That was 7 in each row times 6. That gave me 42. And then I go ahead and add this up, and I'll end up with 522 as my total. Give yourself a big cheer if you managed to get that nasty problem right. Now, as I said, that was kind of ugly. It was sort of fun in a torturous way, but I'm not really looking forward to solving more problems like that. So the good news is I'm not going to make you solve any more like that. Instead, we're going to break this apart. Instead of doing all of those teeny tiny sections, we just figured out a way to break it apart by place value. So we're going to just use 2 sections. We'll have a tens place section. In this case, in that same exact problem, the first section here is just this big chunk right here. That was 80 times 6, and we figured that answer out. And then we have one more little section that's the ones, and we're multiplying the ones place to 7 times the 6. That will be a much easier way to solve problems like this, and we'll do some more practice with that tomorrow. So that's all you had to do for math today.